بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. خلاصة تصريف الفعل المجرد الثلاثي. Summary of the conjugation of the basic triliteral verbs, form 1. We're going to use the color codes here to review al-madi, al-mudari, and al-amr. Ad-damir al-akhdar, the green pronoun, is damirun munfasilun. It's the standalone, separated pronouns, disconnected. Ana, nahnu, anta, anti, they're all in green. Antuma, antum, antunna, huwa, hiya, huma, hum, hunna. These 12 pronouns are all ad-damir al-akhdar, green pronoun, damir munfasil. The next one is, let's look at al-ahmar. Al-ahmar, the red, is for damir al-fa'il, the doer pronoun. So let's look at the red. Katabtu, tu is the fa'il, na is the fa'il in katabna, katabta, ta is the fa'il, katabti, ti is the fa'il, and of course, tu is the same as ana, except that it's the connected version of ana. Na is the same as nahnu. Ta is the same as anta in meaning, except, of course, this is disconnected, this is connected, and so on and so forth. Katabti, ti is the fa'il, tuma is the fa'il in katabtuma, tum is the fa'il in katabtum, tunna is the fa'il in katabtunna. And what happened here? Where is the red fa'il? It's damirun mustatir, hidden. It's implicit, it's implied, because this verb form is used so much, the conjugation for huwa is used so much that no need to mention it. It goes without saying. Here also, there's no red fa'il, but we have a blue ta. And we'll come back to the blue ta. Blue ta is not the damir al-fa'il. It's not the doer pronoun. Only the red in this table is doer pronoun. Here we have kataba and katabata. We have alif attached to katabata. And we have alif again. And both of these alifs represent huma. They have the same meaning as huma. You can think of them as the connected versions of huma. Katabu, again, the red fa'il is waw, and waw means hum. Katabna, the na is hunna in meaning. Let's continue with identifying red damir al-fa'il. Aktubu, naktubu, taktubu. No red fa'il. So what do? We assume it's implicit, it's implied. The fa'il here is ana. The fa'il here is nahnu. How do I know it's ana? Because it begins with hamza, and ana also begins with hamza. How do I know it's nahnu? Because it begins with noon, and the fa'il is nahnu because it begins with noon. And al-mudari always begins with hamza or noon or ya or ta. So these three are implicit. The doers of these three are implicit, implied, or damir mustatir. You've got the red here again. So the ya literally is the damir al-fa'il, it's the pronoun. It has the same meaning as anti. You've got the alif here, which means huma, and it's literally the damir al-fa'il. And then the waw here means antum. The noon here means antunna. Again, the red is missing, no red. What do? We assume it's implicit, it's implied. The fa'il here and here is huwa. Okay, the fa'il here The fa'il for taktubu and katabat is hiya mustatir. And when the fa'il is mustatir, how do we write it? We write it in parentheses like this to indicate it's mustatir. So it's huwa, whoops, huwa. And here the fa'il is hiya, whoops, typing a little too fast there. Fa'il is hiya. The fa'il here is hiya also. Okay, so the fa'il can be mustatir. If there's no red, that means it's mustatir. Okay. Here, the fa'il is, in both the cases, yaktubani and taktubani, the fa'il is red alif, which means huma. What's the difference between kataba and katabata? And what's the difference between yaktubani and taktubani? Kataba is for two boys, katabata is for two girls. Yaktubani is for two boys, taktubani is for two girls. And if it's a boy, girl, or mixed male-female couple, then you just default back to yaktubani and kataba. Here, the fa'il is waw, and it means hum. How come the fa'il, how come the waw here means hum, but the waw here means antum? That's because the beginning tells you if the waw is antum or hum. The waw itself could be antum or hum. The ta beginning tells me that the waw here is for antum. The ya beginning here tells me, that the fa'il, the waw here means hum. Yaktubna is hunna, connected version. And same idea here. We've got a nut here, which means antunna, right? The nut here means antunna, but the nut here means hunna. Why? Why does the nut here mean hunna? Well, because the beginning of the fi'l is ya. And why is the noon, the nut, noon fatha, nut is antunna? Because the beginning of the fi'l is ta. Let's continue to identify red doers. The doers for al-amr work the same exact way as the doers for the mudare. So whatever is the doer in mudare is going to be the doer in al-amr. The doer in mudare here is ya, so is the doer here. The doer here is alif, so is the doer here alif. The doer here is wow, so is the doer here wow, red wow. The doer here is na, so is here. So al-amr is, as I explained in the previous lesson for al-amr, to get al-amr, you delete the first letter of mudari, you delete the noon of mudari, except for antunna. You don't delete the noon because it's doer. Basically, you delete the noon that is not read. Any noon that is not read in mudari, you delete it. If it's red, you don't delete it, which is going to be these three. You delete the first letter and the noon after red. And then you begin with Hamzatul Wasl, which is green alif, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Just a minute. So that's a quick review of all the Al-Ahmar Damir al-Fa'il. Al-Aswad is easy. That's the black. That's the verb. So if you see black in this chart, that's the verb part. Okay, that's easy. Al-Alif al-Khadra, the green alif, Hamzatul Wasl. Where is it? Right here. Hamzatul Wasl is right here. Okay. And all awamir, all the commands begin with green alif. For form one, for basic, al mujarrad al-thulathi. Al-mujarrad al-thulathi, al-mujarrad al-thulathi is how you say basic triliteral, which is form one. So for form one, all the commands must begin with that green alif hamzatul wasl. And the norm is that it should have a kasra unless the ayn has a dhamma, in which case it will have a dhamma. And that's what's going on here. The norm is for ishrab, for example, the green alif or hamzatul wasl, should be kasra, which is the norm, right? Ishrab. This is the norm. The norm is to have a kasra under the hamzatul wasl for commands. Here, the norm is not followed because of this dhamma here. When you have a dhamma on the ain letter, then you must begin with a dhamma. Otherwise, it's kasra. Okay, and we covered that in one of the previous lessons. Hamzatul wasl is interesting. You only pronounce it if you begin with it. If there's a waw or fa or thumma, then do not pronounce. So hamzatul wasl is sometimes pronounced, sometimes not pronounced. All right, so that was, what was that? That was hamzatul wasl, the green alif. Next, we have at-ta'u zarqa, the blue ta, which is ta'u ta'nif. Ta'u ta'nif means the feminine ta. Where is it? I scroll down, I see feminine ta only in two places, katabat and katabata. And what is the point of this ta? This ta is designed to let you know that the fa'il is mu'annath, that the doer is feminine. So whenever the doer is feminine, you put the ta. This ta is not the doer, it's not read, okay, it's not a pronoun, it's just a harf, it's a particle. So it appears in two locations, two instances in al-madi. So that was al-ta'u zarqa, ta'u ta'nif, the feminine ta. And finally, al-alif zarqa, which is al-alif al-fariqa, the silent alif appears here, katabu, and also appears in al-amr, uktubu. What's the point? It's silent, it's not heard, not pronounced, it's only written. What's the point? The point is to prevent possible miscommunication, possible misreading. As we will learn later on in grammar, there are situations when this can cause a confusion. So to remove the confusion, they always add the blue ta after the red waw. Always add the silent alif, al-alif al-fariqa, after the red waw, which is the damir al-fa'il. You can see here the alif, the blue alif is after the red waw. In other words, when the red waw is the last thing in a verb, you must add the blue alif or alif al-fariqa. Now this table shows only al-madi and al-amr as having the blue alif. Can a mudari have blue alif? Only for grammatical reasons. Sometimes what happens is the noon for grammatical reasons, which we will learn inshallah in the next level. Actually, we saw that in Easy Introduction to Arabic. If you remember, if I say lam yaktubu, I have to delete the noon. And as soon as I delete the noon, what do I have to do? I can see that the waw is exposed. Whenever the red waw is exposed, meaning that the red waw is the last thing in a fi'l, you've got to put a blue alif. So lam yaktubu means they did not write. And also remember in Easy Introduction to Arabic, we had lan. Lan yaktubu also causes, lan also causes the noon to be deleted. Okay. And when we did al-mudari, we saw how the mudari is supposed to be for present, right? But what happens when certain particles appear before al-mudari? What happens to the time? The time switches. The time switches to what? To the future. Okay, so let's review that quickly. Let's go to al-mudari chapter where we had the concept. Yeah, al-hadir to al-mustaqbal. It's very important to review this. Al-hadir to al-mustaqbal. When does the time of the present verb switch from present to al-mustaqbal, which is future? If you have some of these particles, there's more, and we will study in grammar, but if you have seen or sawfa or lan or hal, then the time switches to future. And this is not all, by the way. There's other things that can also cause a switch in time for mudari. We'll study those more in other levels in this series, inshallah. So here we are. We're finished with reviewing all the verbs through the color codes. Remember these color codes, they really help you remember and memorize and recall everything you should and need to know about the verb conjugation. What's next? Next, you have a homework practice in which you are expected to identify الفاعل بين الفاعل لكل من الأفعال الآتية. For all the below verbs, mention بين means to clarify, to explain what the fa'il is. وإذا كان مستترا, if it was مستتر, hidden, then فاكتب تقديره بين قوسين, then write it in parentheses. So for example, كتبت, the fa'il is tu, right? But if I look at أكتب, the fa'il is أنا. So I write it in parentheses like that, okay? So whenever the fa'il is mustatir, be sure to write it in parentheses. Otherwise, you may lose points on an exam, because in an exam, I expect you to know this. This is how I know that you know that it's mustatir. Complete this beautiful practice here. And this also here is just shariba. Here is kataba. Kataba yaktubu uktub. Shariba yashrabu ishrab. And then again, qara'a yaqra'u iqra'. Complete all three of these pages. Be sure to make sure that you get the file right. Very important. And then you have a mixed review of kataba yaktubu and shariba yashrabu and qara'a yaqra'u. A mixed review. Okay. And then inshallah, so this is a good deal of practice. If you go through all this practice, you will become expert inshallah in identifying the fa'il for basic form 1 conjugated verbs. After completing this practice, be sure to check your answers using the online answer key and then take the quiz. And inshallah, next time we'll do something called the 6 doors, which is another cool concept. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.